the night she vanished. They say nothing truly disappears, not people, not memories, not the things that watch us when we think we're alone. In Harrow Creek, a town wrapped in trees and silence, people learned that lesson the hard way, because Rose never really left. Harrow Creek wasn't the kind of town you escaped from. It was the kind you forgot existed. A thin ribbon of road cut through endless woods, houses spaced just far enough apart that screams could die before reaching another door. The forest pressed in from every side, ancient and patient, its branches knitting together above the town like clasped fingers. At night, the woods breathed. And on October 17th, 11 years ago, they took a child. Rose Whitmore. Rose Whitmore was 7 years old. She had a soft laugh, a habit of humming when she was nervous, and a small crescent-shaped birthmark behind her left ear, a detail her mother would later memorize like a prayer. She wore a yellow sweater that night. Her mother remembered that part clearly. 6:42 p.m. Rose was last seen walking home from her friend Lily's house. The sun was already bleeding out behind the trees, turning the sky the color of a bruise. Streetlights flickered on one by one, buzzing softly like insects. Rose waved goodbye. She never reached the corner. At first, everyone assumed she'd wandered off. Kids did that. But when midnight came and the woods answered no one's calls, panic crept in like frost. Flashlights cut through the trees. Dogs barked, then whimpered. Volunteers shouted her name until their throats burned. "Rose, sweetheart, answer me. Rose, please." The forest answered with nothing, not even echoes. By dawn, searchers noticed something strange. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just the sound of their own breathing and the disturbing sense that they were not alone. One man swore he saw small footprints that stopped abruptly, as if the child had simply lifted into the air. Another claimed the trees felt closer than before. No one went back to that spot after sundown. The case went cold. Flyers faded on telephone poles. News vans left. Life limped forward the way it always does. But Rose's house never changed. Her room stayed untouched. Her mother set a plate at dinner for years before finally stopping. Not because she stopped believing, but because believing hurt too much. And every October 17th, someone left flowers by the forest edge. No note, just flowers. 11 years later, no moon, no stars, just fog, the kind that swallows sound. At 2:13 a.m., a truck driver slammed on his brakes when something stumbled into his headlights. Not an animal, a girl, barefoot, pale, alive. At the hospital, nurses whispered. She looked about 18, but her eyes were too old, too still. When asked her name, she answered without hesitation, Rose Whitmore. Her mother fainted when she saw her. Her father cried. The town celebrated, but something about Rose didn't celebrate back. Rose didn't ask questions, didn't cry, didn't sleep. She stared, at walls, at corners, at places where shadows pooled too deeply. Doctors found no signs of abuse, no scars, no explanation. But when asked where she had been, Rose smiled and said, "I was learning how to listen." That night, her mother heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, careful. She opened the door. Rose stood there, smiling faintly. "They don't like it when the house is quiet," she said. "Who doesn't?" her mother whispered. Rose tilted her head. "The ones that kept me." The first rule Harrow Creek learned after Rose came home was this: don't ask questions you aren't ready to hear answered, because Rose always answered. For the first few days, the town treated her like a miracle. Church bells rang, food baskets arrived at the Whitmore house. People smiled too wide and spoke too loudly, as if noise alone could chase away 11 years of fear. Rose accepted it all politely. She said thank you when spoken to. She smiled when cameras flashed, but her eyes never focused on faces. They drifted instead to corners, doorways, windows after dark, places where nothing should be. Her mother noticed first. Every morning, Rose's bed was untouched, perfectly smooth, cold. When asked why she didn't sleep, Rose answered softly, "Sleeping makes it easier for them to hear you." Her parents laughed nervously. Doctors blamed trauma. But trauma doesn't make every mirror in a house feel watched. The mirrors were covered on the fourth night, not because Rose asked, because her mother caught her standing in front of one at 3:11 a.m., whispering, not talking to herself, talking into the glass. Her reflection did not move when she did. By the end of the first week, the forest changed. People swore the trees leaned closer to the road. Animals avoided the area entirely. And at night, faint sounds drifted from between the trunks. Not voices, not exactly. More like breathing stretched thin and far away. Rose noticed. She smiled more often after that. Lily Turner had been Rose's best friend. They were 7 together. They'd shared secrets, scraped knees and pinky promises. Lily was the only one who noticed something else. Rose didn't remember games, didn't remember birthdays, didn't remember Lily, but she remembered the woods in perfect detail. Lily visited on a Thursday. The house felt colder than it should have. Rose stared at her for a long time, then said, "You weren't quiet enough." Lily laughed nervously. "What?" Rose leaned closer. "That's why they didn't choose you." That night, Lily dreamed of trees, not a forest. A room made of trees, their branches twisted inward like ribs. Something moved behind them, something patient. When Lily woke up, her window was open. She never opened it. The second doctor quit after one session. He never explained why, just left his notes behind. Only one sentence was underlined. Subject displays awareness of non-human perception. It happened during dinner. The clock stopped ticking mid-second. The lights dimmed. Rose set down her fork. "They don't experience time the way you do." Her parents froze. For them, waiting is the same as breathing. Silence stretched. Her mother whispered, "Who are they, Rose?" Rose smiled, a slow, careful smile. "The quiet ones." Rose said they lived between things, between trees, between thoughts, between moments when no one was paying attention. They didn't hunt, they didn't chase, they listened, and children were loud. She said the woods weren't empty, they were full of spaces, and something lived in the spaces. Rose finally told the truth on the 10th night. Not everything, just enough. She said she hadn't been taken. She said she had been answered. She said she heard something call her name, not aloud, but inside the silence. And she followed it, where sound stopped working. "They wanted to know what it felt like to be small," she said. "And I wanted to know what it felt like to stop being afraid." There was a bargain. Rose never said what was traded, only this: they let me come back so I could teach you how to be quiet. After that night, the house began to shift. Doors closed on their own. Floorboards creaked where no one stood. Corners grew darker than the rooms that held them, and sometimes the walls whispered. People began to hear them, not everyone, just those who stayed too long near Rose. A teacher reported hearing breathing behind her during class. A neighbor said the silence in his house became heavy. Lily stopped speaking entirely. On the 14th night, fog rolled into Harrow Creek, thick, soundless, intentional. Rose stood barefoot at the edge of the woods. She didn't cross the tree line. She didn't need to. The forest leaned toward her. Rose whispered, "I brought you something." Silence is not the absence of sound. That's the lie humans tell themselves so they can sleep at night. Silence is a presence, and in Harrow Creek, it had learned how to walk. Fog usually lifts with the sun. This one didn't. Morning came, pale, weak, uncertain, and the fog simply thinned enough to reveal the town. Beneath it, like a veil pulled back just far enough to remind everyone that something was still watching. Cars stalled, phones crackled, voices sounded distant even when spoken face to face, and everywhere Rose went, the fog followed. They insisted Rose return to school. Normalcy, they said, would help. It didn't. The building felt wrong the moment she entered, like it had inhaled and forgotten how to exhale. Rose sat at the back of the classroom. She didn't take notes, didn't blink. She listened. Halfway through the lesson, every student felt it. That sudden pressure in the ears, that instinctive need to stay still. The teacher stopped speaking. The clock above the board froze. Rose smiled. "You hear them now," she said calmly. A boy screamed. No one heard it. After that day, people changed. not all at once, quietly. A cashier stopped humming. A mechanic turned off his radio and never turned it back on. Children stopped laughing on playgrounds. Sound began to feel risky, as if making too much of it might draw attention. The first person to vanish was Mr. Hale, 73 years old, lived alone, hard of hearing. Neighbors said his television had been blasting static all night. By morning, the house was empty, no signs of struggle, just deep grooves in the carpet, as if something heavy had been dragged without footsteps. Rose passed his house that afternoon. She bowed her head. He didn't know how to listen, she whispered. Lily hadn't spoken in days. Her parents thought she was in shock. But on the 7th night after Rose's return, Lily sat up in bed and said one word, "Hollow." Her mother froze. Lily's eyes were open, but unfocused. "The woods aren't woods anymore," Lily continued. "They're a mouth." Lily said Rose wasn't brought back. She said Rose was sent. Lily described them the way children do, without metaphor, without protection. She said they were old, not ancient like history. Ancient like before sound had names. They didn't understand humans, but they wanted to, and Rose was the answer. This time, it was a child, a boy who wouldn't stop crying. Search teams formed again, flashlights again, shouting names again. And again the forest swallowed every sound, except one. A soft, calm voice drifting from deep between the trees. Shh. The woods open. They found the clearing, the same one from 11 years ago. Only now, it was wider. The trees bent inward, their branches arched like ribs, and in the center stood Rose, barefoot, unafraid. Rose spoke, and the forest listened. "You were never meant to be loud," she said. "That's why they're hungry." Her parents tried to reach her. The ground seemed to stretch. Every step took them nowhere. Up close, they saw it. Her eyes weren't reflecting light. They were absorbing it, like doorways. Rose raised her hand. The forest leaned closer. "I stayed because I learned," she said. "I came back because you wouldn't." The fog thickened. People felt pressure behind their eyes, the urge to stop thinking, to stop moving, to become still. The town begins to quiet. Sirens failed. Radios died, voices lowered instinctively. Harrow Creek was learning, too late. Rose whispered, one final warning. "They're not angry," she said gently. "They're curious." There are moments when people realize they are trapped, not because a door is locked, not because a road is blocked, but because the world beyond them has quietly stopped listening. Harrow Creek reached that moment at exactly 4:06 a.m. The Whitmores tried to flee before dawn. They packed in silence. Instinctively now, clothes folded, zippers eased shut slowly, keys wrapped in cloth so they wouldn't jingle. Rose watched from the hallway. She didn't stop them. She didn't need to. The car started. The headlights cut through fog thick as wool. They drove and drove and drove. The road never changed. Same curve, same broken sign, same leaning pine with bark stripped like a wound. After 40 minutes, Rose's father pulled over. His hands were shaking. The gas tank was still full. The clock on the dashboard read 4:06 a.m. By sunrise, others had tried to leave too. Every story was the same. The road looped. Phones showed different times depending on who held them. Watches stopped when the fog thickened. Time wasn't broken. It was listening. Homes became quieter. Too quiet. Sound didn't echo anymore. It simply vanished, as though absorbed by the walls. People whispered without realizing it. Babies stopped crying, dogs refused to bark. And at night, something moved through the town. Not footsteps, not shadows, but pressure, like the air itself shifting aside to make room. Lily found Rose at the old playground. The swings were still, no wind. Rose sat on one, motionless, feet hovering inches above the dirt. "You're not her," Lily said. Rose smiled gently. "I am what came back." Lily's voice trembled. "What did you give them?" Rose's smile faded. "Not give," she corrected. "Share." Rose spoke calmly, like a teacher correcting a child. She said the quiet ones didn't steal her. They offered her stillness, no fear, no pain, no loneliness. In return, she let them understand humans. Through her thoughts, through her voice. Rose whispered, "They don't want bodies," she said. "They want patterns." The woods. Step closer. By the third night, trees appeared closer to houses. Roots cracked sidewalks, branches pressed against windows. Not violently, patiently, as if waiting to be invited inside. Rose walked freely among them. The forest parted when she passed. People thought the missing had been taken. Rose corrected them. "They're still here," she said softly. "Just quieter." At night, faint shapes appeared behind walls. Not ghosts, impressions, like fingerprints pressed into reality itself. The town tries to fight back. Generators were started. Sirens tested. A man fired a gun into the air. The sound didn't travel. It folded inward, swallowed like it had never existed. The man screamed. No one heard him. They gathered in the church, candles lit, prayers whispered. Rose stood at the door. She didn't cross the threshold. She didn't need to. The silence crept in anyway. Rose, one last time to them. "You keep asking how to stop this," she said, "but you never ask why it's happening." Her eyes swept the room. "You were always loud," she said, "careless with sound, with thought, with each other." The candles went out, all at once. This wasn't an invasion. It was a lesson. The quiet ones weren't conquering. They were studying, and Harrow Creek was the classroom. Later that night, Lily returned to the woods. Alone. Rose was waiting. "They're ready for another," Rose said. Lily swallowed. "Will it hurt?" Rose considered this. "Only if you fight." Lily stepped forward. The forest closed behind her without a sound. The forest closed behind her without a sound. When Lily stepped into the woods, the fog finally moved. Not away, inward. It flowed through Harrow Creek like breath through lungs, filling every space sound once lived in. By morning, the town looked unchanged. Houses still standing, streets still paved, but something essential was missing. The town no longer made noise when it woke. Doors opened without creaks. Footsteps made no echoes. Voices came out thin, careful, restrained. People spoke less, not because they were told to, because something in them understood. The Whitmores noticed it first. Rose's reflection began to lag. When she smiled, it came a fraction too late. When she blinked, the reflection blinked slower. Then one morning, the reflection didn't move at all. Rose stood before the mirror. The girl inside the glass stared back, empty, still, unfinished. "That's all that's left of me," Rose said gently. Her mother collapsed. Rose explained without emotion. The quiet ones never needed her body. They needed access. Her body had been a door, nothing more. What wore her face now was a signal shaped like a child. They weren't dead. They weren't alive. They were listening, spread thin across walls, trees, air. That pressure people felt, that was them. Learning. At 11:59 p.m. on the final night, something impossible happened. A radio in the sheriff's abandoned cruiser crackled to life. One message repeated over and over. "Do not raise your voice. Do not draw attention. Be still." The signal reached exactly 1 mile beyond Harrow Creek. Then it stopped. At dawn, the fog thinned. The road no longer looped, but no one left. Because everyone understood what leaving would mean. Harrow Creek had become a buffer, a quiet place, a place where attention could rest. Rose walked into the forest one last time. She didn't look back. The trees parted, then closed. The woods grew still, satisfied. While you're hearing this, Harrow Creek still exists. Maps won't show it. Satellites blur it. People pass nearby and feel the urge to lower their voices without knowing why. And every so often, somewhere far away, a child goes missing, then returns. Different. Calmer. Quieter. Listening. If you're hearing this story now, if it felt too quiet while you listened, if you found yourself holding your breath at the end, then understand this. They're not angry. They're not evil. They're just learning. And silence is how they hear best.